49ers have figured out a way economically around the whole system by kind of lucking out. They lucked out with Brock Purdy. The fact is they wanted Trey Lance because they drafted him so high. They wanted Trey Lance to be their guy. It wasn't. Turned out it was the guy at the back end of the draft, not all the way up at the front end of the draft. But they lucked out with Brock Purdy, and they were able to pay him $800,000 a year, whatever it is. And then you can pay Deebo Samuel. And then you can pay Christian McCaffrey. They just paid Christian McCaffrey. Then you can pay Kittle. You can pay Bosa, right? You can pay all those guys because, well, your quarterback is not tying up, 30% of the salary cap. And you are seeing more and more teams, I think, maybe looking in this direction, which I think you could put the Houston Texans there. Clearly, you could put the Chicago Bears there. Steelers are in an interesting spot because they get Russell Wilson on a bargain, but they're kind of trying to do the same thing after Big Ben retired because Ben Roethlisberger, Pittsburgh was taking up too much of the salary cap, couldn't pay for anybody else. So once Big Ben retired, they got Kenny Pickett and Mitch Trubisky, but they got Kenny Pickett. They tried to make it work. He wasn't the guy. So break up fast. Get together fast, break up fast. I firmly believe in the NFL. It is, if you do not have a Trevor Lawrence, a Justin Herbert, a Joe Burrow, a Josh Allen, right? Basically, very good quarterbacks who I think we might look back and go, boy, they really had to play in the whole era of Mahomes, didn't they? Like we talk about the guys who played in the era of Michael Jordan. If you don't have one of those guys, it's speed dating. It's speed. You ever take part in speed dating, Brenden?
I can't say that
speed
I have.
dating, did
Not
it die
opposed to
off?
it, though.
Did it die off with my generation? Have you ever seen speed dating?
Yeah, totally. I'm very familiar with the concept.
They still do that? I wonder.
I don't know.
I never did it. I've seen it. We had when I was working in radio in Eugene, we had every Valentine's Day. It was like there was some sort of dating event or singles event, or you know what I mean? Because I was working in sports, but like every other, if you don't know, in radio, there's a whole bunch of other stations in the building. And so there would be it was called Hot AC. AC means adult contemporary in the biz. It's Soccer Mom Station, which, by the way, is awesome. A lot of Phil Collins, a lot of...
Love me some Phil Collins.
Dude, Phil Collins.
As you know.
But a lot of Phil Collins, a lot of Huey Lewis, a lot of Hall & Oates.
Too.
You see Hall & Oates suing each other? Don't like that. Don't like that. Anyways. But, so we always, you would have one of those stations. It's the station that played Christmas music when Christmas came around. And so, but it's Christmas stopped and it was like, oh, it's Valentine's Day. It's like, hey, it's a singles night out. And you would get like a sponsor. So I was there because when you work in small market radio, it's all hands on deck. Yeah, Justin, I know you work sports. We're doing an event. Need you there. And I'm like, yeah, I got Pac-10 basketball. Yeah, don't care. Need you there. It's all hands on deck. So I wasn't participating in it, but Brenden, I sat and I watched, and I'm like, this is unbelievable. This whole speed dating thing. I think it was 5 minutes. Like it was like musical chairs, but there was obviously not one chair that was ripped out. It was also a cruel game to play with children, the musical chairs. Is that still allowed anymore, you think? Too physical, probably, huh? Probably be triggered a little bit too much. I know dodgeball is out.
I remember Duck, Duck, Goose getting physical.
Dude.
We could smack somebody.
Duck, Duck, Goose. Okay.
Goose.
We're going to get back to quarterbacks here in a moment, but it's the opening
segment. I'm distracted.
It's the opening
Justin.
segment
You're gaslighting me to be distracting.
Am I gaslighting you? Are we using... I feel like that's not I don't know if that's the way it's supposed to be.
Did I not use that term correctly?
I don't know. I don't think I use it right anyways. So, there was a game that I played as a child, and not just played in the underground, played with playground supervision, more than happy to. Brenden, it was a game called Red Rover. Have you ever heard of Red Rover?
Red Rover, send me right over.
Yes. Now, are you aware of the way the game works?
Oh, yeah, played it many times.
You've played Red Rover.
Oh,
Did you play it
yeah.
at school? It was allowed? Did you play it at school? Or was that like at a buddy's house or?
YMCA summer camp.
That's okay. Because essentially, and anybody who is of my age, we were playing Red Rover and you hold hands. Now, you wouldn't hold hands now because, germs and all that. But you would hold hands and link and Red Rover, send Brenden right over. And you would try to break. We were clotheslining each other for fun. So, of most physical games, not for children, I'm putting Red Rover up at number 1. Dodgeball's there at number 2. I think Duck, Duck, Goose might sneak in there in the top 3. Duck, Duck, Goose got intense. What do you think was more physical? Duck, Duck, Goose, or like a good game of musical chairs? Because musical chairs.
Duck, Duck, Goose, I think.
Duck, Duck, Goose.
But Red Rover's the most physical.
Yeah, Red Rover, literally we're clotheslining each other.
Yeah, totally.
It was always the best, though. You would get a running and always try to jump. Freeze tag. Freeze tag was another one that would get intense every once in a while. Anyways, speed dating. 5 minutes, adults going like, oh, so who are you? What do you do? What are your things? And you would have pre-written out questions of like, hey, what's your, kind of like what we do with the mailbag. Like just kind of random questions like, oh, what's your favorite TV show? And you would do that and you would then write down a thumbs up or a thumbs down, and then they would connect the people that all. It was Tinder and Bumble before Tinder and Bumble. Well, you should be doing that in the NFL if you don't have a quarterback. But here's the weird spot, right? Just like in relationships. If you were the Jacksonville Jaguars, there's nothing wrong with Trevor Lawrence. As a matter of fact, there are, what would you say, 20 other teams in the league, maybe 25 other teams in the league who would take Trevor Lawrence off of your hands if, in fact, you did not. But is Trevor Lawrence the guy forever for the Jacksonville Jaguars? Is he a guy that can win you a Super Bowl? Because that's where you get into a weird spot in the NFL. Because anybody, I shouldn't say this, it's mean-spirited, but we can all spot a fraud. Maybe Daniel Jones will make a liar out of you, but
we didn't spot Lance for a while.
But Giants fans know, dude, Daniel Jones, it ain't it. It ain't happening. I think the same thing with Geno Smith. No offense to Geno Smith. No offense, but he's not. I do not understand why the Seahawks are not breaking up with Geno Smith and why they did not draft a quarterback in the draft. Because you should be always, or even if you want to keep Geno Smith, why you are not constantly drafting a quarterback. Because if you don't have a guy, you got no chance unless you find the next Brock Purdy. Good luck with that. Oh, but Justin, C.J. Stroud. I know C.J. Stroud, but
just as many Bryce Youngs.
Well, right there. So you have this weird group of quarterbacks that are all getting massive, massive, massive paychecks. And so I wonder, are they great but not elite, or are they simply just in an era where they have had to play in the tail end of Tom Brady and then the era of Patrick Mahomes? Right? Because Burrow, who did Burrow lose to in the Super Bowl?
Stafford.
Stafford, yeah. Lost to Stafford.
That was a great game, too. It was close.
But you have Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert. I don't even think it's fair to put Joe Burrow in there. Joe Burrow's went to a Super Bowl. He's won the AFC Championship. He went and beat Patrick Mahomes in
Kansas City,
Arrowhead. Because remember, they called it Burrowhead, or they kept calling it Burrowhead, and then they stopped calling it that. after
Had some
Patrick
injuries, but
Mahomes
he's
got.
Mahomes' kryptonite, man. No other QB's done it.
So I don't know if we put Burrow in that, but Josh Allen, Justin Herbert, Trevor Lawrence, right? Who else would be in it?
Deshaun Watson with his contract.
Deshaun Watson, Lamar Jackson, right? These are guys who are unbelievable talents, but can you trust them to win it all? But you have to. You have to pay them. So we may dive into that a little bit more. Dwight Jaynes is going to be joining us in hour number 3. Excited to talk to Dwight, and we're going to talk some college football coming up in the other side. The Big 12 might not be the Big 12 anymore. I know they're not changing the number. We'll talk about, once again, big time payday coming to college football next. 620 Rip City Radio. All right, normally at 6:45 is when we do our countdown to kickoff, and we shall continue our countdown to kickoff. But whenever there's a fun college football topic, you guys know I can't help myself, and so I saw this yesterday, and I saw the predictable response to this yesterday, and this is why I am a bad follow on Twitter, because I am trying. Not always succeeding, but I am trying to pause. Let's do a little think real quick. Let's put some thought towards this in terms of how we react to stuff. And we blind react to everything. But the news came out yesterday. I think it was Ross Dellinger, I think was the first to report it. And Ross Dellinger said that the Big 12 might be thinking about changing their name. And everybody's like, well, it's about time, because these names like the Big 10 with 16 teams and the ACC with teams on the West Coast, like these names are getting ridiculous. Clearly, the Big 12 is going to be changing their name. They're going to be the Big 16. They're not changing the number, huh? They like the number 12, even though they're going to have 16 teams. Or do they have 18? I don't know. They might have more. They were thinking about having 18. But anyways, I think they're at 16. Who knows? It ain't 12. But they're
20 with Washington State and Oregon State in the future.
Your lips to the college football god's ears. No, they're not changing the number. They're thinking about changing the big part of it. And it's like, well, you got a 30-year history of the Big 12, right? It was the merger of the Southwest Conference and the Big 8. And it created the Big 12. That was, I think, 1994. And so you've got a 30-year history. What could you – corporate sponsorship. Corporate sponsorship. And I believe Allstate might be in the mix. And I saw a lot of college football media do a little pearl clutching yesterday. Let me say, for the record, I don't like this. I am not a fan of this, but I am also a realist, and I don't understand how in a sport where, let's run through it. Oregon State plays in Reser Stadium, and yes, the Reser family is a family that donated, but it's also a maker of fine potato salad.
Naming rights coming up from what I heard, too.
Interesting.
I believe that was a 25-year lease when it was said and done. So
but they don't play
coming up.
But they don't play at Parker Stadium anymore. They play at
I might have to do a little investigative journalism into that.
They play at Reser Stadium. The Washington Huskies play on Alaska Airlines Field. Oregon, I believe 2 years ago when they went to Atlanta to play Georgia, played in the Chick-fil-A Kickoff Classic. The Civil War game, back when it was actually called that officially, used to be, I think it was the Kendall Auto Group used to sponsor it, and I'm not sure who was the last. I mean, might have been your Toyota dealers of Oregon. The Apple Cup is the Boeing Apple Cup, right, being played on Alaska Airlines Field. And then when you look at the Cotton Bowl Classic, that's AT&T. The Peach Bowl, that's Chick-fil-A. Orange Bowl, FedEx. Fiesta Bowl changed a lot. There was a lot of different Fiesta Bowls, but for a long, long time, we knew it as the Tostitos Fiesta Bowl. And by the way, whenever a team, back when the Fiesta Bowl was a very big deal, I think it was PlayStation Fiesta Bowl. Is that the latest it was? Might even been something different.
That sounds right.
But there was years and years and years where if you made it to the Fiesta Bowl, what did you see on the sidelines, Brenden? When a team won and they're making it to the Fiesta Bowl, what did you see that team do? And the fans do? When you made it, when you won a game, you beat your rival, going to the Fiesta Bowl. You ate a bunch of Tostitos chips on the sidelines, baby. The kids were throwing Tostitos up in the air. Yeah, you see what I'm saying here? Rose Bowl, I believe, sponsored by Citigroup. Allstate Sugar Bowl. And obviously going all the way down to the Bad Boy Mowers Gasparilla Bowl, which if we want to get all the way down to it. You see what I'm saying here?
That's a solid bowl game.
The Gasparilla Bowl?
It
I mean,
is
it's no
in
Jimmy
what?
Kimmel, Rob Gronkowski, now Snoop Dogg Bowl, but
Playing a bowl game in Tampa, Florida, there's worse places to be in December. All I'll say.
that is true. That is 100% true. But you see, if you look at college football and you think to yourself, yeah, that seems silly that how could the Big 12 make themselves the All-State 12? And I saw this a lot. Nobody's going to call it that. And I present to you, again, evidence that I would imagine, Brenden, way back in the day, and you know this, and your family knows this because you're lifelong Beaver believers. I have a hunch there was a lot of fans when they changed it from Parker Stadium to Reeser Stadium, even though you respect and love that Reeser family, who probably said, I'm never calling it that. I bet old Grandpa Slaughter in his seats probably uttered a time or two. And by the way, from what I understand, Grandpa Slaughter, listener of this program,
He is.
daily, tip of the cap to you, sir.
Every day on the walk.
That's awesome. I
Every
have
day.
a hunch that there was a time or two at the Slaughter family tailgate. There was rumors swirling that it's going to be Reeser Stadium, and probably the words were uttered, I'm never going to call it that. It's never going to be called that. We're not doing that.
Can I tell you a fun little story?
I would love a fun
It'll
little
be about
story.
2 minutes long, real quick, then we'll get back to this story. So I don't remember that, Justin, because, again, my cognitive thinking, games and whatnot, I don't really remember Beaver games before 2000, 2001. By then, it was already Reeser, so I don't really remember that.
Yes.
However, we had at Grandma and Grandpa's house, a piece of the Parker Stadium turf before they
Boom.
pulled that, when it was a big deal when they, everybody and their uncle cut a piece of turf when they were taking the turf out, from what I heard back in the day. And it said Parker Stadium. And, 5-year-old, 6-year-old Brenden goes, oh, why was it named Parker Stadium? After Mike Parker?
Should have been.
Yeah, so,
Little Doc Parker.
shout out to Mike Parker. But, yeah, that's kind of my only memory. And I just remember them being like, oh, yeah, the Reeser family paid a bunch of money to name the stadium. I'm like,
Sure.
okay, cool.
And welcome to capitalistic society, right? It's what we do. But it was so interesting that, everybody is looking down their nose and poo-pooing the Big 12. And I think it's a bit silly as well. But you want to pretend like you're not NASCAR college football. You are. NASCAR at least leans into it. And by the way, is there anything better than when the NASCAR driver interview post-race? Man, boy, this M&M's Tide Pod, DirecTV,
It's one thing Ricky
Chevy really run good today. I love it. It's my favorite.
One thing Ricky Bobby nailed exceptionally well, Justin. It's like the family dinner, but probably real life, right? It's like,
It is.
This delicious
it is contractually obligated that the
Mention
the
Powerade
prayer
every
is
grace.
Powerade.
meal. I mean, it's true, though. But you're right.
It cools you down on a hot summer day.
Every time it is the sponsor, it is mentioned. I don't know why everybody got so up in their feels about this, Justin, because I, with you, is like, really? We've already ruined the purity of the game so much at this point? What's adding a corporate sponsor to the name of the league when we're paying players?
It's funny because I saw more than one person, nobody's going to call it that, though, right? Oh, really? Because I was of the opinion, and again, this isn't college football, but how many of you out there in our listening audience said, I'm never calling it Moda Center? How many? I was one. Hand up.
Me.
Brenden was one. I bet all of you, Moda Center? Never going to call it Moda Center all the time.
I do, too.
Call it
Let's
Moda
go to Moda.
Call it Moda Center all the time. It's not the Rose Garden anymore. It's the
know.
Moda Center. Now, I wish, because I know that deal might be coming up soon, I wish that they would just, there's other, don't want to dive down the rabbit hole, but I wish we'd find a way back to Rose Garden. I just do. I wish we'd find a way back to Rose Garden, but that's the way of the world. Never going to call it Moda Center. Even up in Seattle, right? Safeco Field is now T-Mobile Park, and there was a lot of Seahawk fans. They're probably Seahawk fans too, but a lot of Mariner fans. I'm not calling it T-Mobile. It's always, guess what? I see on Twitter all the time T-Mobile. It's at T-Mobile Park. They've done it. They beat you down. You hear it over and over and over again. And who is the one that is pushing this, right? It's the TV. Because I have friends who are sports writers. Brenden, you probably have a handful of friends who are sports writers too. When Oregon State made it to the Jimmy Kimmel Los Angeles Bowl a couple of years ago, I have a hunch that your sports writing colleagues did not put Jimmy Kimmel in there because of journalistic integrity and everything else. They called it the LA Bowl. But what does TV do when they introduce the bowl game? What does the internet do? What does ESPN, when ESPN puts up the graphic? And then, these bowl games got, just like the Big 12 is doing what the bowl games used to do. The Big 12 is doing, because what used to happen is early on when you would get these silly sponsors, like the newspapers and the sports journalists, they wouldn't put the sponsor in there. So you know what they did? They're like, okay, fine. It's the Chick-fil-A Bowl now. It's not the Citrus Bowl anymore. It's the Blockbuster Bowl. That was a real thing, by the way.
It was.
The Blockbuster Bowl was a real thing. It's the Red Box Bowl. It's the Cheez-It Bowl. You want to know why it's not? Because the Kraft Fight Hunger Bowl.
Wow, that's a good one.
It used to be San Francisco Bowl, if I'm not mistaken.
Emerald Bowl. Emerald Nuts.
But I believe even before that, I think it was the San Francisco Bowl.
Before that, got you.
And then it was the Emerald Bowl because they realized if we just name it the sponsor, they have to say it.
I remember because they gave us nuts when I went to that bowl game, Justin. A whole bunch of Emerald Nuts. Funny how that works, right?
I went to, because Oregon went to the national title game 2010 season, and then 2 years later was back in the Fiesta Bowl. And boy, I got so many Tostitos. You don't even, you could not even imagine the amount of Tostitos I ate in those 2 years. But to see, the people online, this is another cash grab. It's like, welcome to college football. You want to pretend like you're not NASCAR. You want to pretend like you're not European soccer. You are. We're not that far away from corporate sponsorship patches going on the uniforms, and don't think that they won't. Maybe not for Penn State, maybe not for USC, but if you are Boise State and was it Albertsons? I think Albertsons merged, though. It used to be Albertson Stadium, right? Wasn't that where Boise State played? I believe the blue turf was at Albertson Stadium.
Still is.
Boom. I was always Albertsons over Safeway, but then they merged.
Me too, right?
Talk about Jets and the Sharks, the Bloods and the Crips, like Safeway and Albertsons becoming one.
Yeah, how did they merge, and how did Safeway's brand win out to be the dominant?
I'm sure it's some sort of
corporate
thing that I don't know enough about, but
CEO power votes and whatnot, boardrooms,
hostile takeovers, and things I've seen in movies. But yeah. So the Big 12 wants to corporately sponsor the conference. Oh, but what are we doing here? This is silly. Is it? Because there is the Chick-fil-A Kickoff Classic. There is the Apple Cup presented by Boeing. Your Oregon Toyota dealers presenting Civil War, which they don't do anymore. But hopefully maybe we can get back to that. Maybe we can all just shake hands and maybe come back to figure that one out. And then it was the Union 76 Big 12 championship. It was I think it was the UPS Pac-12 championship game. Maybe I think that first year, for a chance to win and go to the Tostitos national championship game, or the and again, I'm old apparently because the Rose Bowl is presented by Prudential. It's the Allstate Sugar Bowl. It is the Capital One Orange Bowl. It is the Goodyear Cotton Bowl. It is the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl still, Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl. And it was the Verbo Fiesta Bowl. Should know that because Oregon won it last year. You play on Alaska Airlines Field. I think USC, doesn't USC I think they named I think they're like United Airlines is their field. This is what we do in college football. You slap a sponsor on it. It goes all the way back to the Blue Bonnet Bowl. You know what I mean? It's tale as old as time, song as old as rhyme, but so much of it has been normalized. Stadium rights, field rights, Reeser Stadium, Alaska Airlines Field, Chick-fil-A Kickoff Classic, Union 76 championship game. I think it was did Chick-fil-A also do the SEC championship game? But to think that if the Big Ten decides that they're going to have a 10-year contract and it's going to be the All-State 10, and by the way, this isn't just college football, college basketball. Our corporate sponsors, the Midwest bracket presented by Coca-Cola. You know, like this is what we do. It's what we do. They're never going to call it that, really? How many of you said you wouldn't ever say Lumen Field? Oh, they're calling it Lumen Field? What? Yeah, I'm a Steelers fan. It was Heinz Field. Heinz Ketchup, one of the backbones of not only the great city of Pittsburgh, one of the backbones of this country, Brenden. One of the backbones of this country is knowing that when you go to a diner and you order your French fries and you have a delicious bottle of Heinz Ketchup and you pop that bottle on the 50s, guess what? Pittsburgh Steelers came out and said, yeah, it's Acrisure now. We're never going to call it that. Guess what they call it? They call it Acrisure now. They do.
Your friend probably doesn't.
No, he does because he had an event there. And
Really?
it's like, it's Acrisure. That's just what. It takes about 2 years.
Okay, fair enough.
It takes about 2 years.
Call me surprised.
Everybody said they weren't going to call it T-Mobile Park. Oh, I'm going to call it's going to be Safe Go Forever. And I still slip up every once in a while. But you know what? I still say the New Jersey Nets.
You do say the what's the
New
other one?
Orleans
Is it
Hornets.
the Pelicans?
The New Orleans Hornets.
Yes.
Which they were only there for like 8 years. But yeah. And I think 2 of those, they were displaced by Katrina. Yeah. I don't know why. Well, this is such, I don't get it. Nobody's ever going to call it that. Really? I bet they also said they were never going to say the All-State Sugar Bowl, too. Yeah. Guess what? That's all they say. It rolls off the tongue. It sounds ridiculous at the time because everything new kind of does. But and I know that TV is different now and streaming is going to be changing the way we do things, but it's the big box that we watch the sports on in our living room. There is still something psychological in our brains that when they say it, it's like, that's probably right. Sounds like the way to say it. And it wasn't because a bunch of fans came out and said, hey, you all need to call it Moda Center now. No, it was because every time you tuned in and you say, welcome to Moda Center, and you're like, oh, yeah, that's right. And it just becomes that. It's like the kid that gives himself his own nickname. That's Drew now. I'm Drew.
I'm not calling you that.
Should have stuck with it, though, see? Because that's what you do with the Chick-fil-A Kickoff Classic. Boy, I'm not calling it that. It's just, well, guess what? That's what we call it. You're NASCAR. You are. And that's cool. But I just found it very funny that we're okay with naming a rivalry series. We're okay with naming either A, a stadium, or B, the field that it's on with a corporate sponsorship. We are okay with naming every bowl game, every single bowl gaming, including the national championship. But conferences? Well, that's just, Justin, tradition. Come on. All right. We have got more college football talk as we go on campus. But before we do that, I want to let you know, speaking of Toyota and iHeartRadio, hey, we're doing good things with Toyota, and we want to help fill the truck with canned and non-perishable foods. Go to Coos Bay Fred Meyer tomorrow from noon to 2. And bring your donations and look for the specially marked Toyota Tundra. And then on Sunday from noon to 2 in Newport, also at Fred Meyer, and that same specially marked Toyota Tundra. While you're there, sign up for a chance to win a trip for two to the iHeartRadio Music Festival. Go to the events page at RipCityRadio.com for a complete list of dates and locations, and join us at Fred Meyer as we fill the truck for the Oregon Food Bank. On campus next, 620 Rip City Radio. All right, we are currently 78, count them, 78 days away from college football kicking off its 2024 season. We have got some dates for media days. We got media day dates and an interesting question posed online. It is time for us to continue our countdown to kickoff and to talk some more college football. That's right. Let's go on campus. All right, we have media day, count them, media day dates as the Big Ten, the SEC, and I think the Big 12, as it's known right now. We'll see if they maybe make if they decide to do a name change. When they're in Vegas. But you got, so the Big 12, along with the Mountain West, and I believe piggybacking off of that is the Pac-2, all going to be in Vegas. Brenden, you planning a Vegas trip?
You never have to twist. Never have to twist my arm to go to Vegas. I haven't been to a media day since 2019, but I was gonna make a joke and say, "Is the Pac-2 in there?" And there you go, it was. So. Look at me with the egg on my face.
Yeah, so apparently they will be
July
10th.
Ooh, a little early. Ooh, that's a quick turnaround.
I'm actually going to be in Vegas.
Yeah.
Nope. False. That's not true.
You're going to be in somewhere else.
I will be somewhere else.
Which means it'd be very difficult for me to leave too.
Yeah. Might
so
be a little
probably
tough
not.
for the show. But yeah, the Big 12, the Mountain West will have their media days. They're in July 10th, so, and then Oregon State, Washington State also going to be there. Smart move. I think smart move by the two schools. You want to have it seemed silly for a long, long time. Again, like we talked about last segment, like these corporate sponsors. And then the SEC was like, all right, we have to have media days now, or else how else would people know that college football is coming? But it became a necessary thing. And then now we have the Big Ten Media Day, 3 days in Indianapolis, 3 days, July 23rd, 24th, and 25th. Oregon and Washington will be featured on Thursday, July the 25th, along with Minnesota, Michigan, Maryland, and Indiana. New members USC and UCLA will be featured on the 24th, along with Penn State, Nebraska, Michigan State, and Iowa, and Illinois, Northwestern, Ohio State, Purdue, Rutgers, Wisconsin. They're opening up Big Ten Media Day. So, July, right around the corner. And we got Media Days right around the corner as well. I saw this on On3, which is a very good college football Twitter follow. Fun summer topic. What's the biggest what if in college football history? Now, they have a picture, Brenden, of Cam Newton in a Florida Gators uniform, because of those who are not familiar, Cam Newton was at Florida. He was there. The convenient story was Cam Newton left when Tim Tebow decided to come back for his senior year. That wasn't the case. Tim Tebow was always coming back for his senior year. He was never going to go into the NFL draft until he was done with his eligibility. And Cam Newton stole a laptop, which is why he was not there at Florida and ended up going to junior college in Texas. Mississippi State would pay his dad $230,000 only to have him go to Auburn.
Yeah.
For apparently no money. No money there. But that is a massive what if, though, if you think about it. Could you imagine? What if Cam Newton stuck around at Florida and Florida Gators were able to go seamlessly from Tim Tebow to Cam Newton, a man who was going to ultimately win the MVP of the National Football League and the Heisman Trophy? I know that a lot of Oregon fans always believe, Brenden, that the biggest what if, and it is what if Dennis Dixon never got hurt. Don't want to go down that road. I got another what if for you. Before he signed with Texas A&M, Johnny Manziel was committed to Oregon. He was an Oregon commit on the way, but I don't know, maybe a a bag came from Texas A&M, and he flipped that summer and ended up going to Texas A&M, playing as a true freshman, and he won the Heisman Trophy. And I think part of it was what happens in recruiting. Also, part of it was Marcus Mariota was there, but we didn't know who Marcus Mariota was back then. But Darren Thomas was the starting quarterback coming off of a national title appearance. Darren Thomas was not going to be moved out of the way until 2012.
Right.
But that's still a what if for me for Oregon football. From a recruiting standpoint, what if Johnny Football went to Oregon and played in Chip Kelly's system?
Yeah, that would have been
in 2012. Would Marcus Mariota have beaten out Johnny Football? It seems silly to say no, but Johnny Football won the Heisman Trophy too. And he won it his true freshman year. Marcus Mariota didn't win it until his junior year. Redshirt junior. But to me, that's probably Oregon football's biggest what if. What do you think the Beavers is?
if you beat Oregon in 08 or 09.
What happens if in 08?
You get to one Rose Bowl. You get to one Rose Bowl, and I think
what does that do for the trajectory of Mike Riley? Does he ever take that Nebraska job? If they win, either 08 or 09, right?
I still think he could have, but it's kind of like how we've seen Utah get so much cred from making that first Rose Bowl. And granted, they made a second, but from making that first Rose Bowl, even though they lost, like, once you make a Rose Bowl, people look at you differently. And you might not think it's a big difference between a Rose Bowl and a Holiday Bowl. It is. And, I think that, when you look back on it now, Oregon State still has not been to a BCS, quote unquote,
or
New Year's Six, whatever you want to call it. New Year's Six game since 2000. That's a really long time. And I think that if you got to one, maybe the 2010s would have changed a little differently for you.
Was there ever a recruiting what if? Like the Johnny Football one? Not really?
In recent memory, not so much. Not like that big, no. More just like individual games, yeah, I would say.
All right, coming up, we have got hour number 2 on the way. We got Make or Miss. We've got a Hot Take Friday and a whole lot more. That's next on 620 Rip City Radio. It is 7 a.m. on a Friday morning. Justin Myers with you. NBA Finals continue tonight, 5:30 tip time on ABC as the Boston Celtics look to sweep the Dallas Mavericks. Dallas Mavericks look to stay alive and at least give the home fans one win to cheer about. NFL news, Trevor Lawrence was given a 5-year, $275 million extension with $200 million guaranteed at a $37.5 million signing bonus. The deal ties in with Joe Burrow for the most money at quarterback annually, $55 million per year. Pinehurst #2 U.S. Open currently underway as Rory McIlroy did shoot a 5 under and led the tournament after the tee times yesterday. He is given 2 strokes back. Patrick Cantlay, who will tee off in about 3 hours, still leads at 5 under. Scotty Scheffler, 15th. He is 3 over, far behind. We are headed to hour number 2, 620 Rip City Radio. It's always a bugaboo when doing live updates on the golf tournament, as I thought it was Scotty Scheffler. And, yeah, every once in a while, the YouTube audience will make fun of me because they can see me on the YouTubes. What's up? And they'll see me kind of squint. And I have 20/20 vision, my friend. All right, my vision is as good as it gets, as good as it was back when I was in my prime. But every once in a while, I got to give a little squint. And I was like, oh, Scotty Scheffler must be going on a run right now, back to even. Like, no, he's still 3 over par. That was Xander Schauffele. But when you look at the live updates on, all right, can I do a little grumpy old man on a Friday, even though it's a fancy coffee Friday, it's a feel-good Friday, and I don't want to bring the vibes down, and also it was a minor inconvenience, but yet again, things I don't understand. Let's just chalk this up as to things I don't understand. Yesterday, got into the studio, and I was very pleased because the USA Network, which, by the way, as a child of the 80s, Brenden, the USA Network, a lot of WWF, a lot of Cartoon Express. USA Network, very pivotal in my life. Also, obviously not live, but in Rocky IV, the USA Network is who covered the Drago Rocky fight in Rocky IV. Yeah. It's a big deal. So USA Network, very big in my childhood, and still kicking, still up there. It was never TBS, and it was never WGN, but you know what? Boy, it was right there. Now, USA Network falls under the NBC umbrella, which I believe falls under the Universal umbrella. And yesterday, all morning long, golf was on USA, and I was like, that is awesome. What a perfect place to put the golf tournament. You don't get, reruns of Suits. Suits was on USA, right? Yeah. Was White Collar also on USA? You don't get reruns of Suits and White Collar. I believe Rizzoli and Isles, I think, was a TNT show. Psych. Wasn't Psych on USA Network as well? Starring Dule Hill. Anyways. This is the things in my brain that's not math and proper English. Anyways. So I'm like, oh, sweet. Yeah, you don't play replays of Psych or of replays of Suits, but we'll watch golf on the USA. So I get in this morning. And it was clear the afternoon guys were also watching round 1, and USA Network was on. And I'm like, ooh, that's great. Let's watch USA. Nope. Reruns of Chicago Fire, which is awesome, by the way. I love Chicago Fire. But I'm like, why did round 1 on basic cable, as still a basic cable subscriber, that's me. But then you go to round 2 and it's streaming only on Peacock. Now, because I'm a sicko, I do have a Peacock account. I popped it on the computer and I signed in. But because we don't have smart TVs hooked up to the internet. Here, I got to watch it on the computer screen. So therefore, I got to squint, and therefore, I screwed up and thought that Xander Schauffele was Scotty Scheffler. So that's the reason why.
It's fair.
But why would you put round one on TV? But by the way, you can also stream it because you control the stream. It's your stream.
Well, you and I did make a.
But why would you put round one on USA and then not put round two? I don't understand. I'm sure there's something there, but it's not like that. It's reruns of Chicago Fire, which, again, shout out to Kelly Severide and 51, right? They're keeping Chicago safe, and it's always good to make sure that Stella and and Herman and
Hot take,
and
Justin.
Severide and all that. They keep Chicago safe, but why don't we have a golf tournament on? It's the U.S. Open.
It's true. Hot take, could be a case to be made that with more live sports moving to streaming services, maybe some of the TVs in this studio may need to get smart.
You want to put it in that email? You want to run out on, you want to get out on that limb?
Just an observation. May get kicked back down the line, but when there's not so much NFL games, but I'm trying to think what really hits us Monday through Friday. A lot less now that I say it out loud, but you never know. Especially with again.
Well, the good news is
games on Netflix, games on Peacock. It's
good news
growing.
is we have multiple screens though, and so I'm able to watch the golf on the second screen and still keep all your fire Twitter takes thrown out there. All right, one of the other big things that happened today, was it late last night or was it early this morning? Either way, Trevor Lawrence got paid. He got a lot of money. He is going to get a was it $275 per or over 5 years. That's $55 million per. The big number there though is the $200 million guaranteed. No matter what, he will be getting $200 million because that was always seemed to be the hang up, right? Was on these quarterback contracts. I think Herbert was like 180. I think Burrow, even though he's getting 55 per, I think was also around 180 guaranteed because these teams did not want to go down the road that the Cleveland Browns went. Was it 230 guaranteed to Deshaun Watson, I think? And did not want to go past that $200 million guaranteed money number. Well, Trevor Lawrence is there. So, Brenden, you found a fascinating stat, which, again, we shall bring context into this, and because situations are situational. But there's not a lot of success at the highest level with the highest paid quarterbacks in the league. What was your quarterback stat that you had for me earlier in the show?
So 9 of the top 10 highest paid quarterbacks by average per year value. So this is per year, have not won a Super Bowl. Several have been in, but number 10, Patrick Mahomes.
So Patrick Mahomes reworked his deal. He gets paid. He will ultimately get paid on the back end on this whole deal, but he reworked his deal so that Travis Kelce could get his deal. And I think also part of it was a little bit of the Chris Jones hangover as well, but Patrick Mahomes is like, yeah, he gave Kansas City a team-friendly extension, reworked his deal, freed up more cash so that he could keep Travis Kelce because Patrick Mahomes knows that even though he's the best quarterback in the league, if I don't have Travis Kelce to throw to, I used to have Tyreek Hill to throw to, I don't really have much after that.
Oh, I have another stat that actually blows this all away once I had to look at it. Patrick Mahomes, Justin, has more playoff wins than the rest of the group combined. He's 15-3. Yeah. That's pretty nuts.
Patrick Mahomes is getting into like the uncomparable territory.
Brady territory, dare I say?
Getting close. I mean,
well, at this age, he is kind of ahead of Tom.
Because
he kind of is.
That was the thing. Jordan, Tiger, and Brady, right? Those guys, the way they were being compared to the field. That's Patrick Mahomes is, I think, is the closest thing we've got to that in major sports right now, right? Because it was Jordan playoff wins or Jordan rings compared to Barkley and Ewing and like all of the contemporaries, like combined, they had like 3 rings. Jordan's got 6. Brady, We used to do those stats all the time about the amount of playoff wins that Brady has, and obviously Tiger Woods. And you look at like what he had compared to the field, not just in major championships, but tournament wins compared to the net. Like Patrick Mahomes is getting into that territory. But here's what I'm wondering. And again, this is just for entertainment and for discussion. I've mentioned multiple times that there is a new economic way going on in the NFL. And when you look at these teams that are paid, I've said earlier this morning, I said as early as an hour ago, that, yeah, when you find your guy, you got to pay him. Is this the smart way to do it? Because let's run through. Brenden, let's start. List off, please, the top 10 quarterbacks and paid per year in the NFL. Start at the bottom. Patrick Mahomes is number 10. Clearly, he's got the championship DNA. Who's at number 9?
One sec. Sorry. Just closed that tab
We're
accidentally.
closing the tab out.
All
Brenden.
right. Got it now. All right. Let's see. So Patrick Mahomes comes in at number 10, making $45 million a year.
Got it.
Kirk Cousins, number 9.
Don't see him winning a championship anytime soon.
1-3 in the playoffs. $45 million a year.
Currently with the Atlanta Falcons.
Yes.
Currently has Michael Penix Jr. waiting in the wings.
Deshaun Watson.
Don't see him winning a championship anytime soon. Well, I shouldn't say that. If he ever gets it figured out, Joe Flacco took him to the playoffs.
Yeah.
That defense, as much as I hate them, that defense is so good. But I don't know if I would put my faith in Deshaun Watson with injury, questionable decision-making, clearly, and just lack of football playing the last 4 years. Like, just hasn't played a lot of football.
I mean, you never know.
Making a ton of money, but I don't know if he is good enough to take the Browns all the way to the championship. All right, who is after him?
Kyler Murray. 46.1.
Yeah, I don't see him winning a Super Bowl.
0-1 in the playoffs. Jalen Hurts, $51 million, 2-3 in the playoffs.
I want to see what happens with Jalen Hurts this upcoming year without Jason Kelce, without him, arguably one of the best centers of all time, and essentially the secret sauce to the tush push, right? So I'm curious what and I like Jalen Hurts and I root for Jalen Hurts. He made it to a Super Bowl. Played good enough to win, but also some key turnovers. So got very, very close, but
interestingly enough, Kellen Moore, his new offensive coordinator after they whiffed on the OC this last year. So that'll be interesting to see. Lamar Jackson, $52 million.
By the way, Kellen Moore not in the College Football Hall of Fame, in case anybody was wondering.
Dude, he should be.
You think?
Goodness gracious.
I went on a rabbit hole after we had Josh Pate on last week.
Hot
College
Take
Football
Friday
Hall of Fame
coming up.
Yeah, Kellen Moore not in the College Football Hall of Fame.
Hot take, someone should be fired for that. But anyway, continuing with Lamar Jackson, $52 million, 2-4 in the playoffs.
Man, is it just... Maybe it's just because they play against Patrick Mahomes, but also maybe because these teams are realizing you pay the quarterback so much money, you don't have enough to go around. I don't know. It is fascinating. Fascinating numbers when you think about it that way. You know what else is fascinating? Hey, Ticket Tuesday. That's right. Rip City Radio and Ticket Tuesday. We want to keep that winning streak alive. Tickets to the Hillsboro Hops all season long. Listen to Rip City Drive each and every Tuesday for your chance to win. Or you can get Hops tickets now at hillsborohops.com. Make or miss coming up next. 620 Rip City Radio. All right. 1 hour from now, Dwight Jaynes is going to be joining the show. Obviously, part of Rip City Drive. Friend of the program. And here's what I want to talk to Dwight about, because we just mentioned it with regard to the NFL. And we're going to get back into these numbers because it is fascinating when you think about it, right? Top 10 highest paid on a per year basis, right? Now, I don't know how much that translates with the salary cap and everything else, because everything is kind of manipulated, and you got really, you got the Jennifer Gardner smart cap people there in all these buildings. This is going to hurt us with the cap. It's slotted money, Sonny. How do you not know? Anyways.
Amazing.
Brendan's the only one I think that gets that joke. And
you know what's funny?
And I throw it.
Is there's a chance, and again, not a shot, but just what I've been able to observe, there's a chance draft day is better reviewed than Horizon. So we'll see what happens.
I've seen other things where this
they think it's pretty good?
I think your eyeballs see what you want to see.
Okay.
And I don't know. We'll find out. Neither here nor there. But you look at the way that some teams, I believe, are going about it, which is the 49er model. And I guess it's not the 49er model. Nobody who has a great quarterback is releasing them to go sign a rookie. Do you know what I mean? Right? I guess maybe the Vikings kind of did that, didn't they? They didn't re-sign Kirk Cousins, and then went and got J.J. McCarthy.
Yeah, save the money for Justin
Save
Jefferson.
the money for Justin Jefferson instead of spending it on Kirk Cousins.
And signed J.J. McCarthy and went cheap with Darnold.
So we'll see what happens there. Obviously, you've got what the Houston Texans were able to do. We'll see if Anthony Richards there in Indianapolis, because who did they just pay? Didn't they pay somebody? The Colts. I thought they paid somebody. Who was the touchdown scoring machine 2 years ago?
Oh, well, they just gave DeForest Buckner a $46 million contract extension. Shout out the Oregon Ducks.
Who is it? Why can't I think
was
of
it their running back, Jonathan Taylor?
Jonathan Taylor.
Oh,
That's
okay.
right. He got a restructured deal, I think, last year,
Yeah.
based upon because they went rookie quarterback. And they decided they're not going to pay Gardner Minshew, who took them to the playoffs.
Let's hope Anthony Richardson lasts more than one game?
Yeah, did I call him Anthony Richards?
I didn't. It didn't land.
I combined
so I didn't hear
Michael
it
Richards, who played Kramer, and that is how I shall always remember him, as Kramer, not any other video that you might see of Michael Richards. But I combined that, so that one's my bad. But just like we're seeing it in the NFL, right? There's new economic ways to get around the cap. I wonder, Brenden, not from maybe an economic standpoint, but are the Celtics maybe changing the way that NBA teams are going to go about building a championship roster? Now, it's easy to say that, but it's like, yeah, what do you do? Well, when you have the number 2 overall pick, you take Jason Tatum. That helps. Or number 3 overall. My bad. When you have the number 3 overall pick, you take Jason Tatum. And when was Jaylen Brown drafted?
2 years before.
At top 5?
Number 3.
Number 3 overall.
Or no, excuse me. It was exactly the year before.
So they went back-to-back, number 3 overall. But
people forget Boston was not very good to be in that mix for 2 years, right?
But I just wonder, like, from a Blazer standpoint, because you think about the ways that over the years it was to build a championship team. Boy, it certainly seems like it's changing now. In what Danny Ainge and then Brad Stevens both have their fingerprints all over this championship, put in there with Boston. So I'm curious what Dwight thinks about what's going on with Boston, and like, are there some lessons to be learned there?
Well,
from the Celtics.
And with that, I mean, you look at like how they came together, right? And it's like at the time
moving on from like a really good guard because it just doesn't quite fit the timeline or the roster.
Right. And,
you know what I mean?
Right. And then
as opposed to keeping like 7 guards on the roster.
Right. And I just think that they got lucky in back-to-back years that 2, this, Justin, I love positionless guys, and getting 2 guys who are 6'8", 220 pounds, who can shoot threes, dribble, defend, all that. And then you look at what was the missing ingredient to the Celtics these last couple years, even when they made the finals against the Warriors, the missing ingredient was Marcus Smart's good. Malcolm Brogdon's good. Robert Williams is good. How do we get to great at the other positions? Drew Holiday, great, right? Kristaps Porzingis for what he is in that system when healthy and not with a quote-unquote rare injury.
They're going to win the NBA Finals, and he's going to play in, 4 games in the playoffs?
No, they didn't need him. Now, that being said...
Now, they needed him to get to the number 1 seed.
Sure.
And they also benefited from Jimmy Butler, Donovan Mitchell, and Tyrese Halliburton all getting hurt. So they did benefit that.
And then, sneaky moves along the way, like picking up Derek White from the Spurs for nothing a couple years ago. Hanging on.
The fact that Al Horford's still kicking.
Right, Al Horford. Snagging Peyton Pritchard, getting him on a very affordable deal as your backup point guard for the next 6 years. And here's the thing that should scare the rest of the NBA before we open up Make or Miss, Justin. Not one person, Justin, of consequence will be a free agent for 2 years.
Yeah.
Not one person of consequence, and that's Derek White.
But in the NBA, do you ever really get to free agency anymore? Right? Usually it seems like if you are anywhere coveted, and sure, there's going to be a handful of free agents, and I understand, but mostly it's on a restricted free agent. Very rarely anymore, you either A, get an extension, or B, demand a trade.
Right, and as you told...
Because if you are really good and coveted by other teams and you're happy, then guess what? You get paid. If you are coveted by other teams and you are unhappy, well, then you demand a trade and you get what you want, right? No, who was the last... We talked about with Jerry West earlier this week about how big of a get it was to sign Kevin Durant. Was he the last big free agent?
Kawhi, I think.
Kawhi was a free agent too, and Jerry West got him too. Huh?
Well, hey, the logo, man. But you're right.
That might have to do with more about GPS than Jerry.
Might
have to do more with West Coast than Jerry West. Might combo both.
But I remember the Lakers wanted him too. They thought, we can put Kawhi and LeBron together. It was a thought for a minute, and hey, it would have been intriguing. But the one thing with the Celtics, Justin, is it going to be a problem in the next 2 years that for the next 2 years after this, Jaylen Brown making a lot more money than Jason Tatum?
Yeah, that's going to change.
Yeah, how long is that going to be a thing?
Mm-hmm.
And, will that narrative bubble up like we love to create? Justin, Jason Tatum makes $15 million less than Jaylen Brown.
Can you have 2 on a Supermax? You can have 2 on a Supermax, but it really screws up that whole second apron thing, right?
Yeah, I guess they'll have to.
They're going to have to, though.
Right?
You have to, and you take your shot. But if you're the Celtics, that's banner number 18.
Yeah, you're just keep going with it.
They don't take them down. Once the banners go up, they don't take them down. This is not like college where the NCAA can be like, a banner flies forever. You take your chance. And we still talk about 1977 here, and neither one of us was alive back then. We talk about it all the time. You do what you have to do to be able to get a banner. That's why you're here. Anyways, all that being said, excited to have Dwight on the show. Coming up now less than an hour because we filibustered a little bit. Let's get to Make or Miss. I was just thinking about because, Brenden, for a long time, I think it kind of started with the Boston Celtics, the Paul Pierce Boston Celtics. And maybe it was more even the Lakers, which was, hey, they had a big 2, right, in Shaq and Kobe, but it was get them, star power. You got to have it. And then you had that run, you had the Celtics, which they got Ray Allen, they got Paul Pierce, they got, and ultimately that was not a dynasty. It was a dynasty that never happened, but that banner flies forever. Doc Rivers still gets that championship. You can't take that away. And then we saw LeBron create a big 3. We saw big 3s started becoming created everywhere. Now you have seen, I think, from Toronto to Bubble Lakers, to Bucks, to Warriors, to Nuggets, and then ultimately Boston Celtics. Those are 6 pretty unique ways of building a championship. You know what I mean? You had Toronto, which was you're one piece away. You go and you get your hired gun, right? Toronto was a good team. Go and get Kawhi. Hired gun, need him. Bubble Lakers, kind of that super team mentality. They went out and got Anthony Davis, and they also got a bubble to deal with it. Warriors, old school heart of champion stuff. Just gutted that one out. And all those guys were homegrown, right? Drafted, roster building. Bucks drafted Greek Freak at 15 7 years ago and develop. And you can almost kind of say the same thing about Jokic. So I don't know. It's just saying there's so many unique ways to pathways into winning a championship now in the NBA.
No, for sure, for sure.
I've filibustered half of your make or miss. For that, I apologize.
That's okay. I will now commandeer and tell you what you have to do as part of homework for the first part of Make or Miss, Justin. I'd like you to pull up the Chiefs' Twitter so you can have the brand new Super Bowl ring in front of you so you can see it, please. And up first on Make or Miss today.
I almost spelled chefs when I went to search for Chiefs,
That's fair.
and then made me chuckle inside. Who are the chefs? Those are commercials,
Hey,
kids. They were things I used to play in between shows. Great googly moogly.
Hey, man, you're also probably just getting ready, man. Carmi Berzotto, chefs, coming back up soon, Justin.
Okay,
I mean, the Bears coming back, what, got a week, I think?
sure.
Yeah, something like that. But let's go ahead and take a look. Up first on Make or Miss. I kind of made, before we get into Make or Miss, but I kind of poked fun at this ring when I first mentioned it to Justin.
Mm-hmm.
But then I kind of looked at it and saw a little bit more of it. So upon further review, Make or Miss, this is kind of a cool Super Bowl ring. So the Chiefs revealed their Super Bowl ring today from the overtime Super Bowl win over the San Francisco 49ers. And like many others of the style now, it opens.
Yeah,
Except this time,
the top pops off.
yeah. When it opens, Justin, it's like a it's not like fully open. It's like a clasp kind of that opens upwards, and it has
Like a secret compartment
yes,
where you can put your bubble gum in there.
and it has
Like kangaroos shoes. You didn't know about those, but I bet your parents do. Ruse. They were Walter Payton wore them, and in the tongue they would have a little Velcro pouch, and it was like, oh, my shoes have a pocket, and it's like, what can you put in there? Like maybe a quarter fit in there. You couldn't fit anything in there, anyways.
yeah. So
But it's got a little.
yeah, it's a display celebrating quote Tom and Jerry, which was the Chiefs' name for the play that they scored on in overtime.
Okay.
That they beat San Francisco. The play is diagrammed in Andy Reid's writing. So I thought that was kind of cool. And again, it's from what I heard, it's got a lot of references to 3 in it in various ways because, the Chiefs are trying to go for their third straight and all those things. Nevertheless, I kind of like having the winning play That's new. I've never seen that. That is a new thing.
That is a new. I like it. It's kind of cool. These are getting absurd though.
Oh, they are.
They are getting
So
absurd.
ridiculous. You held a Super Bowl ring recently.
A couple of them, yeah. No big deal. But maybe I'm missing something here, and forgive me if I am. Because usually when they make a note of like it has 529 diamonds on this, it's usually like a significant number. What's five? Is there anything significant with 529, or is just that's how many it took to spell out world champions?
Yeah, usually they would say if there was something, so maybe they're just
38 rubies, 529 diamonds.
It doesn't seem like anything particularly special with that number.
Okay.
Which is kind of
I
interesting.
guess they're probably like, dude, we diagrammed the play, and like, what else are you gonna do?
In a bigger sense, though, like, just because I don't think it ever really has been close, Justin, what would the impact be if they won it again this year and they won 3 in a row? Because best memory serves.
Well, if that happens, then guess what? We start talking greatest of all time stuff. Not just with Patrick Mahomes, but we start talking about
Andy Reid,
and we start talking about just this Chiefs team compared to, like, football dynasties, right? Because the Patriots won a lot, never won 3 in a row. Cowboys.
Were they close in 05? Like, who was, like, that's what I mean. Like,
Yeah, like, correct me if I'm wrong, nobody's ever won 3 in a row. Yeah.
Nobody's won 3 in a row. But, like, I'm wondering if anybody was like, yeah. So
the closest was the 90s Cowboys. 90s Cowboys went back-to-back and then lost to the 49ers and then won it again in 97.
Oh, good call.
So that was, I think, probably the closest. And obviously the Patriots, they were just there every single year.
Like the year after they lost in divisional to the Broncos. So there you go.
But, yeah, the Chiefs come back and win the Super Bowl this year. You have to legitimately get into, is this one of the greatest teams, not one of the greatest team of all time, which I don't like doing. I don't like doing, because I try to go anti-recency bias. But sometimes you're living in the good old days right in the middle of them. You know what I mean, Bernard? Like that. Sometimes you are right in the middle of the good old days. And for the Chiefs, you're in the middle of it.
Yeah. And okay. So think about that, Justin. Okay. So what's harder? Winning 3 Super Bowls in a row or getting to 4 Super Bowls like the Bills and losing all 4?
Oh, boy.
Right? Is that not a tough one? And I don't mean to trigger Bills fans, but that's still ludicrous when you say that they couldn't win 1.
Yeah.
Not 1.
I think playing 4 straight might be tougher
harder.
to do.
I think that's harder.
Because
playing
like we said,
4 straight Super
there was
Bowls.
a chance, like the Patriots had a chance, the Cowboys had a chance, the Steelers in the 70s had a couple of chances at getting to 3 in a row. Yeah. It's going to 4 Super Bowls straight. It's got to be so difficult. So hard to do. Yeah, those rings are, they're something. They are. That's something. So, man, I'm looking at Patrick Mahomes, and he's just like, dude, living his best life. Just absolutely.
I mean, why would
living
you not
his best life,
right? I mean, why would you not be at this point, Justin? Because, like,
did you ever get a class ring?
I did
you
not.
Get from Jostens?
Yeah, I could have. I remember.
Which is funny that Jostens is the one that makes the Super Bowl rings,
and
they also make everybody's class ring.
Yeah, talk about a great company for rings.
Whoever.
I almost got one for college. My good friend got one for high school, and I remember him saying, like, "Yeah, I kind of wish I didn't because it sits in a drawer." Yeah, hard to say, right? Like, they're cool, but I remember at the time I didn't have the extra couple $100 to spend.
Well, and I know, like, it's become a thing now, too, where the Super Bowl ring is the Super Bowl ring, but I think, wasn't there talk of, like, the NBA championship going to, like, pendants? To, like, wear, like a necklace? I didn't make that up, right?
I think I saw something about that, too.
Or, like, maybe the ring, like, it pops off and it becomes a pendant or something like that.
Yeah, I think I did see that.
How long before we see, because, these guys like the chains. And chains you can wear all the time. How long before we see Super Bowl chains? Or
I think we'd see NBA first.
You think NBA first to do it?
Yeah, I think so. NFL, man.
I would totally do it.
But yeah, well,
if I were an NBA owner and my team won the championship, yeah, we're getting chains. We are changing because you used to get a watch.
Yeah.
And then watches became rings. And then
it'd be LeBron. LeBron would go, if he got his 5th, he'd go, yeah, I need a chain. For me and Bronny.
They're going to draft Bronny. Oh, what a mess. All right. Coming up, we do have a Hot Take Friday. Like I mentioned, Dwight Jaynes is going to be joining us in hour number 2. Do want to let you know about Toyota and iHeartRadio. That's us. And we need your help. That's you. Filling the truck with canned and non-perishable food items to benefit the Oregon Food Bank. Bring your donations and look for the specially marked Toyota Tundra at 2 different Fred Meyer locations this weekend on the Oregon coast. Tomorrow from noon to 2 in Coos Bay. And then on Sunday, also from noon to 2 at the Fred Meyer in Newport. Look for that Toyota Tundra and bring your canned food items. While you're there, enter for a chance to win a trip for 2 to the iHeartRadio Music Festival in Las Vegas. Visit the events page at RipCityRadio.com for a complete list of dates and locations and join us at Fred Meyer as we fill the truck for the Oregon Food Bank. Hot Take Friday coming up next, 620 Rip City Radio. All right. It's supposed to cool down, I think, this weekend a little bit, and then it gets back up to more pleasant temperatures. Now, why am I pretending to be a meteorologist when I clearly am not certified to be one? Well, it's because it's that time of the week where we like to spice it up a little bit. And even though it's still a little bit warm in the studio and it's still going to be fairly nice today, we feel like kicking it up a notch. Bam, Emerald. Is always fun. And so we like to save some of our spiciest takes. Now, what are spicy takes? Well, they're passionate arguments over unimportant things. And for that, we have a little segment we like to call Hot Take Friday. Here we go. A lot of hot dog eating contest stuff in the news this week. I mentioned this earlier, but I'm bringing it back for Hot Take Friday because I want to reiterate to any of the Netflix producers that may be listening to the show, because, I mean, why wouldn't you? We're worldwide. Check out YouTube and the iHeartRadio app. We're worldwide, baby. You've got Kobayashi versus Joey Chestnut in a hot dog grudge match for the ages. In the last 24 years, only one other person has won the hot dog eating contest that was not named Kobayashi or Joey Chestnut. So here's what I say. I implore you. Let's go back to old school hot dog eating contests. Let's do a little. You know, they do throwbacks are all the rage, Brenden. Nostalgia is all the rage. Kobayashi changed the game 20-some years ago when he came in with his, I just take the hot dogs out of the bun, eat them, and then dunk the bun in water. How about we have an old school hot dog eating contest? You get water, sure, but hot dog has to stay in the bun. Hot dog and bun must be consumed together, and no dunking. Now we'll see who's the true hot dog eating champion? Because could you imagine if you ever went to a barbecue, if you went to a backyard picnic, and all of a sudden you saw your buddy or your cousin or your brother or your uncle or somebody hey, what do you want? Hamburger, hot dog? Give me a couple of dogs. Great. And they took them out of the bun and just ate the two hot dogs at the same time and then dunked the bun in water. Hot take. I want to know who the real hot dog eating champion is on Labor Day weekend on Netflix. And for that, I say true hot dog eating does not involve dunking the bun.
I agree.
Old school, dry bun, and I know. This might be a choking hazard.
Can I?
I'm saying you can have all the water there in front of them, but no dunking. No dunking it in the water.
They probably could.
And I want to see him eat a hot dog like Americans eat hot dogs. That's my hot take.
Yeah, no, that's a solid hot take. And very much in that same breath, Justin, they could have never pulled this off. But you know what would have been super fun with this? To have it be outside on a beach and have Steve Carell narrating it. That would have been a hilarious little, kind of inside joke that I think they actually could have pulled off.
But I want to see him eat a hot dog like Americans eat hot dogs.
So not Michael when he's like, yep, just use the water to help it slide down your gullet easier.
No dunking. No separating dog from bun. Right? Old school. That's what I want to see.
Could you imagine what your reaction would have been, though, if you went out to a work party and your boss said, yeah, we have plain hot dogs to eat? No.
Now, as a person who loves hot dogs, I would be all for it.
Even with no toppings. You'd be down.
Yeah, I would need some toppings.
Yeah, he said, where's the toppings? Oh, nope, just hot dogs and buns.
All right, what's worse? Hot take. What's a worse if you were to go to company picnic?
Ooh.
And you would get hot dogs, no toppings, or sandwiches, but like veggie sandwiches. Because we've all been there.
Yes,
We've all been there at the office where they're like, hey, we got sandwiches, and there's there's equal amounts of veggie and turkey and ham. Like, why? And is it a surprise that all the left is the veggie?
Yeah. Ooh, that's tough. I'm gonna still
I would
go.
also throw in pizza, no toppings, but you like cheese pizza.
I do. I'm gonna go with the hot dogs without toppings. The worst because that veggie sandwich is probably still gonna have mayo on it, or mustard, or have a mustard.
I was at a golf tournament once, and I was so hungry.
Yeah.
I was so hungry, and it was like, oh, sandwiches are right up there, and I go up there, and like, all that's left are veg. And listen, if you are vegetarian, if you're vegan, good, you do you. But I think you got to understand when you have that in your life, you got to kind of plan your meals ahead. Like that's kind of got to be on you, right? It's like a bunch of veggie sandwiches.
Yeah, no, I think that's a very fair
Or a
and
tray
accurate.
full of oatmeal raisin cookies. Which one's worse?
Say that again.
Tray full of oatmeal raisin cookies.
Oh God, those are terrible.
Hot dog. Hey, could you go to hot company picnic? Here's what we've got for you. We got hot dogs with no toppings. For those of you that don't want to eat hot dogs, we got some veggie sandwiches for you. And for dessert, a tray of oatmeal raisin cookies, extra raisins.
That'd probably be enough for me to leave the company. Be perfectly honest, I probably would say
Brenden submits his resignation.
It's been a fine time. And again, I'm not saying this.
Clearly, the values
Yeah.
of the company do not align with the
my own. In many ways. But no, yeah, probably, gosh, if push came to shove, probably the hot dogs. A dry hot dog sounds like the worst thing on planet Earth.
I have a friend that eats dry hamburgers, and I'm just like, you think that I liking raisins in my trail mix is psychopath material. Dry hamburgers.
My brother used to do that for
Yeah.
the longest time. He used to also eat like chicken nuggets without sauce for the longest time. Thankfully, he's come around on that. But I thought that
Though, sometimes you have to, like on a road trip, like just.
he was just no sauce guy, man. Like it was
Boy,
interesting.
I don't know.
But no, my hot take, Justin, 9-volt batteries serve no purpose. Hot take on a Friday because I had to switch out a smoke detector.
I was going to say smoke detector.
Recently, and there's no reason why smoke detectors can't operate off of a D.
Or double A.
Yeah, off of a D, double A,
Two
triple A,
double A's. How come we don't have two double A's?
Yeah.
You're right.
a C.
The only time you need a 9-volt battery, the only time you have to go to the store, and nobody has 9-volt batteries in the drawer. I've got a gajillion double A's because the remote control, we got to have them. The only time you need a 9-volt battery is when you do the smoke detector. And obviously, is the smoke detector industry subsidizing the 9-volt battery industry?
Have to be.
Because you don't use them for anything else.
Have to be. But yeah, that's my hot take. 9-volt batteries don't need to exist. They do.
I think I might be with you on this one. All right. Coming up, hour number 3, 620 Rip City Radio. It is 8 a.m. on a Friday morning. Justin Myers with you. The Boston Celtics look to wrap up the NBA Finals tonight in Game 4. They take on the Dallas Mavericks with a commanding 3-0 lead. Tip-off is at 5:30 on ABC. NFL news, Trevor Lawrence. Well, he's got to make some room in his bank account because he was given a 5-year, $275 million extension with $200 million guaranteed, $37.5 million signing bonus. The deal ties him with Joe Burrow for the most money per year annually at 55. And currently, Pinehurst number 2, the course starting to show its teeth in the U.S. Open as the morning groups coming back a little bit. Rory McIlroy, 1 over on the day, still sitting at 4 under in second place. Patrick Cantlay at 5 under, leads the tournament, yet to tee off in round number 2. Friend of the program and one of the hosts of Rip City Drive, Dwight Jaynes, joins us in 20 minutes. Hour 3 starts right now on 620 Rip City Radio. Hey, welcome back to Rip City Mornings, everybody. Hopefully you are having a fantastic Friday morning. As I mentioned in the update, Dwight Jaynes going to join the big show in about 20 minutes. I was listening to Dwight and Chad, and sadly it was when Bill Walton passed away, but they had some fantastic guests on that day, and they were talking to Danny Ainge, and Danny Ainge was telling a story, and we mentioned it earlier this week. We were talking about MacArthur Court, because Danny Ainge, North Eugene Highlander, he's a 5'4" guy, even though I believe we were all 5'3s when I was a kid. And then I think I was in middle school when I was given the 5'4". We were all 5'3s.
Solid athletics from what I've heard at North Eugene, too.
We get Danny Ainge. Trying to think who else was in North Eugene.
I'd always heard it was slightly more superior to South Eugene.
Well, now wait
Ooh.
just a gall darn minute there, because in the South Eugene Hall of Fame, the Athletics Hall of Fame, Brenden, is the Myers family as a family is in the South Eugene Hall of Fame. So if you were to ask my dad or any of my uncles who was superior in terms of the North versus South Eugene argument, I have to I back the purple on this one.
That's fair. There are.
It's funny because one of my very best friends was a North Eugene Highlander. My dad and mom both are South Eugene Axemen, and not Lady Axe, because if you ask my mom, she'll still say, I'm an Axeman. I think they're just the Axe now. I think they got rid of the men, but if you ask my mom, she's still an Axeman. And the Myers family, from Ralph Jr. all the way down to my dad, and all Myers in between, and their loud mouths. That's not surprising.
So
in the inducted into the Hall of Fame there. So I am
quick.
You didn't know that, but I am a bit biased, as my parents both went to South Eugene High School.
Oh yeah, no, I'm totally biased too. Grandpa went to North Eugene. Dad went there for 2 years before going to Lake Oswego.
Okay.
So, but no,
we didn't know there was a Slaughter-Myers rivalry that was brewing before you and I were thrust into this radio world.
Oh, yeah. So it's
unknowing.
Yeah, kind of interesting, though, looking at it just real quick. North Eugene looks like they win the contest with athletics and people in athletic backgrounds.
Yeah.
You got guys like Danny Ainge, guys like Andrew Moore, Kenny Moore.
Andrew Moore was so good.
Right?
He was so good. I remember when I was down there, and I used to coach American Legion baseball there in Eugene, and then a couple years later, Andrew and I was in Seattle because I knew who coached Andrew Moore, and then the Mariners drafted him. He was so good.
Yeah, Andrew Moore was solid. Beaver fans love him. Robin Pflugrad, some others. But then you go over to South. Justin, there are 2 governors of this state who went to South.
Mm-hmm.
A mayor of Portland went to South. Matt Kearney went to South.
Well, Matt Kearney, I don't know.
I'm just continuing to just a lot more.
From either, really quick though, I'm wondering between either schools or really any school in the great state of Oregon, any high school have a 2-time Super Bowl champion defensive player of the year? Oh wait, there's only one? Got it.
What's Danny Ainge, dude? He's got how many rings though?
He's a Super Bowl champion though.
Yeah, no, I'm
no,
just
he was
saying.
not. He didn't win the Super Bowl
That's
twice.
fair, but
defensive player of the year in the NFL. There's only one of those guys. Got it. First ballot Hall of Famer. What were we going to talk about? I had something. Oh yeah, I did want to talk about this the Big 12 thing again. Here's my question, and we talked about this earlier in the show. It's funny to me. So if you haven't heard, the Big 12 is potentially. Not potentially, they're going to do it. It's going to happen. Like, that news doesn't get out. They're going to change the name of the conference. And no, they're not changing the number. Even though they have 16 teams and it's the Big 12, it is going to be a corporately sponsored name. Now, it shouldn't surprise you because obviously the Big 10 and the SEC, they're the big money conferences. They don't need to change their names. They don't need the corporate sponsorship, right? Like the Yankees don't need to be called,
the Madison Square Yankees.
Or, well, Yankee Stadium is Yankee Stadium. You know what I mean? Like that's not Yankee
Madison
Stadium.
Square at Yankee Stadium.
It's like the Mets play at Citi Field, sponsored by Citibank. Like it's never going to be T-Mobile Stadium in Yankee Stadium, right? So the Big 10 and the SEC, they're fine money-wise, but the Big 12, like at this point, it's kind of why not? And I laid it out to where I don't like it, but we are so far past the windmill in Back to the Future 3, right? That's the point of no return, right? It's the windmill is the last place you can hit the brakes and not go into Shawn Ash Ravine and have it renamed Clayton Ravine and then Eastwood Ravine. That ravine had 3 names. There was a windmill there. College football is way past that, right? We have the Chick-fil-A kickoff. We've got the Boeing Apple Cup. We have got the Union 76 Big 12 championship. We've got the Arco, we've got Alaska Airlines Field, right? We got Reser Stadium. There's corporate sponsorships all over the place. All over the place. Obviously, bowl games were the first. The Bad Boy Mowers Gasparilla Bowl, and there's going to be a Snoop Dogg Bowl. There was a Gronk Bowl. There's a PlayStation, Verb, all of it. Here's what I wonder. What's next? Seriously, like what's next? Now, I'm not saying that USC, Penn State, Michigan, any of these traditional college football programs are going to maybe start wearing sponsorship patches. But if the Boston Celtics will have a sponsorship patch, what's to stop Boise State from being like European soccer? Like what's to stop some of these now Power 4 schools to say, well, we want to be able to keep our players. We want this NIL money. There is no overarching governing body. It's just been basically that's not done this way. It is almost like a bit of decorum as opposed to an actual rule. So I keep throwing out Boise State. Let's just say Washington State. Washington State and Oregon State going into this. By the way, Washington State, it's Martin Stadium, but it's GISA, which is a credit union field. Oregon State plays at Reser Stadium.
We need some more corporate sponsors.
Need to get
the NVIDIA Corporation.
The Pac-2 championship or whatever is going to be sponsored by somebody, as it should be. What would stop? Because you're in your own conference. You make your own rules. What would stop Oregon State and Washington State coming out and doing like European soccer and just uniform?
Yeah,
sponsored uniform. You're like, well, why would you do that? because we want to keep our players. And we're
Yeah.
going to use that, and that money's going to be NIL money, and we're going to try to keep our players so that we don't have to sit out. And this is no shade at the collectives out there, but it would be less of a burden on, what is it, the Damn Right
Damn right, collective.
Like, they don't go out there and have to fundraise like a fourth-grade soccer team, right? Let's get corporate sponsors.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if that's coming up next.
Yeah, I mean, like...
Somebody's going to have a uniform that's going to look like a NASCAR.
Yeah, I mean, you say European soccer, but correct me if I'm wrong, Justin. I think Messi's Tampa uniform is completely, pink, which would be quite something for college football, and has ads on the front and the back.
So here's why I said I bring up European soccer, because that's still... MLS, from what I understand, and I'm not a soccer guy, all right?
Neither
so you
am I,
soccer guy, you footballers out there, don't
Portland
get mad
Timbers,
at me.
don't come at me.
Well, you can tweet at me. I don't care. But I'm not
Scarves
a soccer guy.
away.
I asked someone who I know who is a soccer guy, and I'm like, what is MLS? If Premier League was, or I think the Champions League was Major League Baseball, and he was like, somewhere between single A and double A.
Yeah.
In terms of
Sure.
where it's
Okay.
at.
So,
and we know, like, minor league baseball, not afraid of a corporate sponsor here and there. So here's is there a team willing to, change their school colors?
that would
Willing
be...
to change your school colors? Not saying Oregon State or Washington State,
Yeah.
but if you were like Grand Canyon U,
Oh,
right?
the Lopes,
fairly
man.
new on the scene. Would you be willing to change your colors for a corporate
Yeah,
sponsorship?
because, for instance, we've seen this already, right? So,
By the way, back in the 20s, they used to
Not-
change their school colors all the time.
so not necessarily in
Also, Colorado used to be light blue.
not necessarily in college. I actually just saw this last week. So after a year, just 1 year of terrible fan reviews, the Utah Jazz are abandoning the lightning yellow and black
Yes.
and going back to purple, their beautiful Mountain Karl Malone and John Stockton colors. So if the NBA can pivot colors, like the Memphis Grizzlies
They do all the time.
have
Yeah.
pivot colors, the New Orleans Pelicans
Now,
pivoted colors.
It's a little bit different, obviously, in college. It's the school colors, right? It's
Sure.
It's
Now-
worn by not just the basketball team, but it's worn by everybody. But I'm wondering, I bet you we are not that far off. If we, good Lord willing, the creek don't rise, Brenden, we're still doing this show in 4 or 5 years. I'll bet you we see some very aggressive athletic director say, like, yeah, we are up for Dr. Pepper, North Texas, right? Because Waco is maybe fairly close to North Texas. Baylor's not changing their school. They got a bunch of private school money, but like Dr. Pepper, 20 on all 23 of their flavors. What if they became like the North Texas Doctor and they changed the team nickname and how far away are we?
I think that's a little far out. The thing that I think could happen immediately,
I know, but it's going to be the All-State 12.
is the advertisements. That and uniform changes. You watch that, like schools like Oregon State and Washington State that have no uniform history, boom, done. I could see that happening.
Oh, don't tell the Cougs that. They get all fired up.
Now, like USC, Penn State, that would never happen. But teams who could need the money, absolutely.
Boston Celtics have a patch, though. Just saying. Penn State, I don't know. They might get a patch.
This is true.
All right. Dwight Jaynes, friend of the program from the Rip City Drive, joins us next, 620 Rip City Radio. All right, very excited to welcome back to the big show. Got a lot of stuff to talk to Dwight about because we've got less than 2 weeks to the NBA draft. The Blazers have 2 picks. Are they going to use both of these picks? What moves potentially could be made? You got the finals going on and might be wrapping up tonight, and all sorts of other fun stuff. To welcome back to the big show, one of the hosts of Rip City Drive, now friend of the program, Dwight Jaynes, back in. Good morning, Dwight. How we doing?
We're doing well. It's glad to hear I'm now a friend of the program.
Well,
I appreciate that.
you were always a friend of the program.
Okay. All right.
And so we're very happy to now have you back on a more regular basis. That one's on me. That one's my bad. I did want to go and talk about this because you came on and talked about Bill Walton when sadly we lost the legend of Bill Walton. And then I was listening to you and Chad because you had a great run of guests, and I was listening especially when you were talking to Danny Ainge. And the reason why I wanted to talk to you about it, I think it was Chad asked him about when Danny Ainge was growing up in Eugene and when UCLA would come to town and how big those games were at MacArthur Court. You were a student there at the University of Oregon, and Danny kind of hinted, and I heard you kind of hinted as well. And my dad grew up just down the road by University Park there in Eugene as well. He had told me stories as well. Dwight, a lot of doors around MacArthur Court. Not all of them locked and not the most secured venue. The old barn of MacArthur Court. Not too difficult to maybe find a door that wasn't being guarded.
Yeah, well, I didn't accuse Danny of sneaking into those games because I think he had tickets actually, and he has talked about that, and this is while he was a student at North Eugene, not when, he went to college at BYU. But I have to tell you, I'll confess to this, that many years later, I was a freshman at Oregon, and they were still playing at McCord, and UCLA had come to town, and that was Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, then Lou Alcindor. And I had already, I had a student ticket for the game, but I knew they were practicing, and it was a closed practice because that's the way Wooden rolled. And we wanted to see John Wooden at practice. And so me and a couple guys from the dorm snuck into Mac in the absolute upper tank of that ancient building, and hid behind some seats, but peeked out and watched almost the entire practice, during which Wooden barely moved. He just stood on the sidelines and let Cunningham, his assistant coach, run the whole practice, basically. But we did see him practice, and it was a very organized practice, as you might expect. But that was a great team, and I really enjoyed sneaking in. That was a badge of honor. And I had a run there as a college student, Justin, when I was able to sneak into just about anything. I was kind of like the college version of Jungle Jamie, the famous gate crasher, who I actually came to know pretty well in later years. But Jamie would have been proud of me. I snuck into Portland Buckaroo hockey games by going through the kitchen. I even took a date that way, a first date. And I said, we're going to the hockey game. Oh, great, we're going to the hockey game. And we're down there in the sort of the end zone of the Coliseum and on the outside. And we snuck through the kitchen, and I said, just keep walking. Don't look at anybody. Just keep walking like this is what we do all the time. And she did. And then I popped a door, and it let you out underneath the grandstand in the south end of the Coliseum. This is Memorial Coliseum. And then from there, you walk out out from under those bleachers and just find a seat somewhere. And she never, to her credit, she never criticized me for doing that, because it saved me probably saved me $2 or $3.
Yeah.
What it about cost in
Big
those
deal.
days to go. But yeah, at that time it was okay. More money for post-fun hijinks after the hockey game. So I was pretty good at that stuff.
Yeah, there was a story that my dad always liked to tell me. They would pool all their money to buy one ticket, and then one friend would go in, and then mysteriously
Yeah.
a door at the side, probably
Yeah.
near what is now Jane Saunders Stadium, but the old baseball field right there. A door in that little back alley would just kind of pop open, and about 5 or 6 other kids would all just run in.
Justin, that was a big deal for us. We used to do it at theaters. We would pool, and it was funny because in a lot of theaters, those exit doors were out of sight. Kind of, they were down a
Yeah.
hall or something. We'd pay one guy go in, pop the exit door, and 15 guys would come piling into the theater. We never got caught doing that. We did that so many times. I couldn't believe it. And then always said, "Do not open. Alarm will sound." Well, no alarm ever went off. That was just a bluff. We learned that real quick.
Dwight Jaynes from Rip City Drive joining us here on 620 Rip City Radio. I want to talk. Earlier this week, we lost Jerry West. I know you and Chad were talking about it on the show yesterday. We were talking about it as well. Obviously, there are arguments and debates to be made about who's the greatest player of all time. I'm a Jordan guy. You're a Chamberlain guy, and then there's the LeBron generation, and those will go on and on and on. There might be arguments over who is maybe the best GM or executive of all time, but Dwight, I don't know if we're ever going to see a basketball guy, just player, coach, executive, the level of Jerry West. That might be an untouchable an untouchable spot where a guy like him, as an MVP of the league, a champion, an NBA Finals MVP when he lost, and then constructed so many dynasties. What a unique basketball career for Jerry West.
Well, you're without question right. There's nobody even close as far as being a basketball guy.
Yeah.
He was a basketball guy for decades, decades, and decades. And when you think about three-time All-American at West Virginia, this was back, I think, in the 50s. He was relevant as a basketball guy from the 50s all the way up to the 2020s. I mean, can you imagine? Yeah. But he was like, as an executive, I still believe the best ever. He made his mistakes. They all do. But some of the moves he made were just genius. And based on, you never had to worry about your front office wanting to win when he was there. There were no tanks. There were nothing like that. They were going to win every year or he would die trying. And he was unbelievable at the creative things he did and his ability to identify young players like a Kobe Bryant in high school when, I'll tell you what, a lot of people second guess that draft pick. Yeah. I was around when he chose to trade for him after that draft or in that draft. People thought he was nuts, but he knew.
Well, also, Dwight Jaynes joining us here on 620 Rip City Radio, and I hinted at it a little bit because the evolution of the league, we're all guilty of kind of getting stuck in our ways, mm-hmm. and I think NBA executives are the same way, where it's like, no, this is how you build a team. You got to, and from a time where he built around Magic Johnson and then built around Shaq and Kobe as a duo, then built what would become the Golden State Warriors team around shooting, and obviously Steve Kerr had a lot to do with that. Being adaptable and bendable, like you said, identifying young talent, but also kind of seeing where the league was going and seeing what it was going to take to win, because you can't win with a team like the Showtime Lakers in today's game. You can't. You probably could still win with Shaq and Kobe today's game. I don't know. That's a debate for another day. But his ability to kind of identify where the league was going was, I think, looking back, is probably one of the most impressive things.
Yeah, I agree. He set his own trends at times. It was like, I think we can win this way. Nobody else had, but they did win that way. And I'll tell you what he did in Memphis, people forget that. He went into Memphis, which is a terrible franchise. And within a couple of years, and he did it, he hired Hubie Brown to coach there out of basically an old ABA guy, really. And I remember just laughing at that. Like, Hubie Brown, are you kidding me? Because Hubie was already up in years, and I didn't figure he could identify with his players, everything else. 2 years later, they were winning 50 games, and Hubie came through Portland, and I interviewed him. And I sat and talked to Hubie, and I thought, man, now I see why he hired him. This guy's still pretty sharp. But Jerry had a way of, like, he didn't, he just knew the whole league so well, too. You could ask him about anybody, and he was just so full of opinions and intelligence. And the quote I got that day was from a good friend of his and a former colleague who said, "I never came away once from a conversation with him without two things: laughing and learning." And that's what you did when you talked to him. You laughed a lot because he was funny, and then you learned a lot if you paid attention.
All right, so kind of now taking that and looking forward, I've been fascinated with this Boston Celtics team, and I do think a little bit of this run that they are on is I think one there's not a lot of drama associated with it, and us in the media and myself as guilty as anyone, we love the drama. And then the other part of it is just the fact that Jimmy Butler, Donovan Mitchell, Tyrese Halliburton have all been injured. But when you look at the way this Celtics team, constructed by Brad Stevens and Danny Ainge, both of them have kind of their fingerprints on this team. It seems to be a very unique blueprint in the way that they kind of built this team up. And I know you tweeted about how, we're so used to superstars and marketing individuals that it almost seems like we don't quite know what to do with this team because they share the ball, they play defense, seemingly are a bit unselfish. Jason Tatum, for being a superstar caliber player, doesn't seem to have a lot of some of those superstar tendencies. It really seems like a unique path to the championship for the Celtics.
Yeah, and I've never been one to celebrate the Celtics or even root for any particular franchise, but I'm happy that they are going to win this year, Justin, because I think there's a chance they might bring back the beauty of basketball, which is the movement, the sharing of the ball, and getting away from the isolation-based hero ball that we've seen for years now. Since, and it started when the league started marketing, it's Jordan versus Drexler this week, and all this individual marketing that they've done for years that used to really upset players and coaches. Now I think everybody's used to it. The fans are certainly used to it. And judging players off the performance of their team. Oh, it's the ring culture. He only won one ring or he's never won a ring. It's a team game, and it always has been. And it's so nice to see a real team win. They defend together. They play offense together. They still go off on their own once in a while late in games to their detriment, I think, for the most part. But it's a team that shares the ball and shares the credit. You never know which of their five players is going to beat you on a given night. I love that. That's the way basketball is supposed to be. And he's deep. They have a deep roster because he plays those guys during the regular season. In the playoffs, they're still ready to contribute. What he's done with Peyton Pritchard has been terrific. He's allowed him time on the floor, and he's a very valuable role player for them. And I believe in another year or two, he's going to be off on another team as a starter leading a team. And I think I like what they've done for basketball. At least I hope they've done that for basketball, and we can get away with all the hero ball because they beat Dallas, which is a hero ball team, just pounding the ball to death before one guy takes a shot.
Well, and the other thing that I do kind of like, and then you're also seeing it with Dallas, is you mentioned the fact that Boston plays their bench and they get minutes during the regular season. Also, Boston played defense during the regular season, and I think we're seeing it now with Dallas. And I know Luka's taken a lot of heat, and I think he deserves a good amount of heat, but it just kind of one of those things that goes to show, Dwight, that when you don't play defense at all in the regular season and then you just try to crank it up in the playoffs, that A, you're going to be out of shape because it's hard to do, and B, you're going to be out of position, and then you foul out in the fourth quarter of a pivotal game 3. And again, hopefully, like you talked about with sharing the ball in offense, also maybe if you play a little defense and maybe play your guys more minutes in the regular season, when game 3 comes around, you don't look like you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. There's no question about it. And it's funny, Justin, I've always marveled at this. People always, the cliche is defense wins championships in almost any sport. And then once the game starts, everybody forgets about defense. And they it's partly because there's no real statistic individually that really has merit. People look at steals and block shots, but that's not really the backbone of playing good defense. It's getting in front of somebody and keeping yourself in front of them. And so we can't really evaluate it. We just forget about it and start talking about he's the first guy to get 17 points, 15 rebounds, and 4 block shots in a game 3 of the finals in an odd number year, and it's all offensive stats, and you just quit hearing about the defense. But really, the reason the Celtics have won has been their defense. Dallas hasn't scored 100 points yet in the finals.
It's insane.
Yeah, it's crazy. They didn't do that all season, go 3 games without scoring 100 points. I think they only went 2 games without doing it one time. And it's just unbelievable what they've done. And they took away the lob. They took away the corner 3. That stuff doesn't have a lot to do with block shots or steals. It's just the way they play. They play intelligent, structured defense as opposed to the old Knicks or the Pistons who played physical wrestling battle royal kind of defense. That was different. This is real defense where you have a system, you cover for each other, you know which way to push your guys. And I don't mean push them physically, but force them, take away their right hand or their left hand, whatever. This is really good stuff that they're doing. And I give Joe Mazzulla a lot of credit. Chad and I continue to make fun of the guy, mostly based on not only his name, but his bewildered appearance on the sidelines or at the podium after games where he gives some of the goofiest press conferences. But he's done a good job with that team. I don't think there's any question.
Oh, you mentioned wrestling. I was gonna ask you last time I had you on, but it didn't feel appropriate because we were talking about Bill Walton. Have you seen Iron Claw? Have you watched Iron Claw?
Yeah, I saw it.
I
Yeah.
watched Iron Claw on a plane, Dwight. Now I knew, because again, I, like you, am a fan of old school wrestling, so I knew the story of
You
the
knew
Von
the
Erich
story.
family,
Yeah.
and I knew what was coming. I also knew there was a little bit more than they left out of the movie,
Right,
as to why
right.
maybe some of the tragedies happened. I'm bawling my eyes out on a plane, and my wife is looking at me like I'm a psychopath because I decided to watch Iron Claw on a flight home.
Well, it was a good movie, very underrated. And, I couldn't get my wife to watch it with me because she knew it was about wrestling. So that was pretty much a disqualification right there. But I watched it and I knew, like you, I've heard the story so many times, and you're absolutely right. They left quite a bit of stuff out, which movies have to do. They're not going to tell the whole story. They don't have time, but it was well done. I thought the actors did a great job. Tragic story. And there are books about it. There are stories about it people can read. And it's nothing but a real sad story of a family just coming apart totally.
I was like you. I went to my wife and I was like, "Hey, you want to watch Iron Claw? We were looking for a movie to watch on Sunday." And she goes, "What's it about?" I got a sentence and a half and I quit. I go, "You know what? I don't think I'm going to sell you on this. I think I might save this one for the plane."
But if she'd have watched it, just like if my wife had watched it, they would have liked it. I believe that. I don't think you have to be a wrestling fan to watch it.
No, I thought it was. I thought it was great. And again, I think much like the movie Miracle, right? You knew what was going to happen. You still get kind of excited at the edge of your seat. I knew what was going to happen, by the way. Spoiler alert, very sad ending. Very sad ending. And I knew what was going to happen. Still crying on an airplane. And I knew what was coming. That's how I think it's a good movie.
By the way, Miracle, Kurt Russell's greatest performance is Herb Brooks. If you'd ever talked to Herb Brooks, you'll know how close Kurt Russell was to Herb Brooks. And that speech he gave right before the game against the Soviet Union was incredibly done, just the way Herb would have done it. And I had the experience of interviewing Herb Brooks a couple of different times during Olympic trials at the National Sports Festival. And it was amazing. He picked up that Minnesota accent. Kurt did a great job with that. And Herb Brooks, one of the great characters of all time. If you can get it on YouTube, call up that pep talk he gave his players before the game. It'll bring you to tears. I mean, it's just unbelievable. They could beat us 9 out of 10 times, but tonight is our night. We're the best team in the world tonight. God, that was good stuff.
That's what we got here tonight. Hey, Dwight, thanks so much. Appreciate the time. Appreciate you coming on the show. Have a great show this afternoon. Now that you got Chad back and all his bad takes, and you got to deal with.
I have to straighten him out a lot.
The
Oh,
whole
my God.
bunch. He came in hot off of his vacation with a whole
Oh,
lot
the
of takes.
Caitlin Clark stuff was, oh my God.
Well,
that
luckily-
was a knockdown drag out there.
Luckily, we're out of time. We don't need to dive into that here on this show. Hey,
Yeah.
have a great show this afternoon. We'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
There you go. Dwight Jaynes. We have got the RCM mailbag next, 620 Rip City Radio. All right, time to wrap up the big show and get ready for the weekend ahead. We do that the same way each and every day, whether it is Monday, whether it's Friday, or all days in between, except for Saturdays and Sundays. We take those days off. But right now, it is time to get into the RCM mailbag. Here we go.
All right, firing up the big mailbag here on a Friday. We're starting with a question that was semi-posed from our good coworker Dwight Jaynes from the last segment. He rightfully so said that Kurt Russell, one of his best, and he said the best performance he gave was Miracle, specifically the speech that he gave to his team. I don't have a disagreement with it. I'm just curious if you agree, Justin. Kurt Russell's a little bit more in your bracket age-wise than mine. I have some movies of his that I like, but they're all kind of modern 2000s movies, which I don't think is really his era, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so Miracle is incredibly good.
Oh, it is.
It is incredibly good because, as we talked about, one, he nailed the Herb Brooks persona and everything else. And it's tough to do when you have, like, somebody like that you've seen video footage of. Escape from New York is one that I think some people will put up there because he played Snake Plissken. But for me, as Wyatt Earp in Tombstone, that's my favorite. That's my favorite Kurt Russell movie. Also, shout out to Kurt Russell and his dad, Bing Russell, who used to own the Portland Mavericks.
I know him from the Battered Bastards of baseball.
Yeah, that's the Portland Mavericks. So you got the Portland Mavericks, but yeah, Kurt Russell as Wyatt Earp. Tombstone is that's one of those. It's a top 5 movie of mine. Sometimes it's 1, sometimes it's 5, sometimes it floats in the middle. Always in the top 5. Few Good Men, Tombstone will always be in my top 5, no matter what. But yeah, I'm going Tombstone.
That's a pretty good one. Again, like I said, I will say both those movies are great. So you're going to go ahead and give him the nod over the Kevin Costner made Wyatt Earp movie. Justin has to do a big sigh there. I just had to trigger you.
There was a run there, and I think the internet has kind of helped this. This is one of the benefits of the internet, because I do wax poetic about life before the internet. Life wasn't always great before the internet. GPS is pretty awesome. Not having to use the road atlas and not have to pull over and ask for directions. But there was a run there, like Armageddon, Deep Impact. The same year, 2 meteor movies?
Yes.
Wyatt Earp, Tombstone. Because what would happen is in Hollywood, somebody would start on a script and somebody like, well, if we can get ours out before. There were 2 Mall Cop movies, right? There's Paul Blart Mall Cop, and then there was Observe and Report.
Yeah.
There was a run of just Little Big League Rookie of the Year. Like, we're just making the same movie. Little kid goes to the big leagues. You know what I mean?
Don't hate on Little Big League.
I'm not, but I'm saying, isn't it just an interesting coincidence that Little Big League and Rookie of the Year were made right around the same time? Tombstone and Wyatt Earp were made around the same time. Deep Impact and Armageddon were kind of made around the same time. Like, we just, for years and years and years, because nobody could keep a secret in Hollywood, we just got a run of like, hey, that movie and that movie, they're exactly alike. How did that happen? And it was just a run to get it out. And then Tombstone is better than Wyatt Earp, way better. And a big part of that is because of Kurt Russell. And the other big part is because Val Kilmer's Doc Holliday might be one of the greatest performances of all time, if I do say so myself.
Okay, let me ask you this. This has nothing to do with this Kurt Russell. Just quick little aside. What movie, in your opinion, Justin, is more unrealistic? Little Big League or Draft Day? And you have to answer. You cannot duck this tough question. Yeah. How about that for a rock in a hard place?
Little Big League is less realistic.
Because a child could
not be a manager of a Major League Baseball team. But I could see a person who clearly knows nothing of college football becoming a GM. in the NFL.
Okay.
And like, to be fair, Sonny Weaver Jr. was kind of a Nepo baby, right? Because his dad ran the team, had to fire his dad, and then his dad died. They didn't really dive into that, did they? So he was kind of a Nepo baby. I could see that happening as well.
You know what I got to give credit to both movies for, Justin? And I've seen both movies managed to get the official, like, NFL and MLB logos and players, and there wasn't, like, fake teams or fake colors or so. I'll appreciate that.
Yeah, if you were to ask me, yes, clearly a GM who knows nothing of the salary cap and knows nothing of Big Ten football and knows nothing of how a draft works, apparently, I could see that happening more in real life than a 12-year-old almost getting the Twins to the playoffs.
Yeah. All right, but going back to my, I would say probably Miracle, but just to show how different our kind of Kurt Russell takes are, like, I loved him in Deepwater Horizon, kind of the B-roll he played in that movie. I loved him in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
He was good in Deepwater Horizon.
Yeah.
I liked that movie.
Mr. Jimmy, man, he was great. Like you said, I wasn't as much into Tombstone, but still like them.
Tombstone's so good.
Yeah, still like it a lot more than, like you said, everyone, you pick one, right? I liked Armageddon way more than Deep Impact. So no offense to Deep Impact, but, there's not as quite as many references in Deep Impact as there are Armageddon. Justin,
Armageddon was a better movie.
You're not riding a nuclear warhead. So, get off the nuclear warhead, Justin.
Crazy as it sounds, right? We bought that we'd send a couple, like, how hard could it be to teach someone to drill? I mean, in all honesty, like, it's easier to teach them to be astronauts. And we're like, it was 1998, and we were like, makes sense to me. All right, that's going to do it for the big show. Thanks to Dwight Jaynes. Thanks to super producer Brenden. Thanks to all of you. Have a terrific weekend. We're back at it Monday morning bright and early here on 620 Rip City Radio.